Hello, everybody. I am super excited to be back with you all with the Girl Be Selfish podcast. And I'm super excited because I have a very special guest today, my sis, Dr. Rochelle Robinson. Listen, today's podcast is going to be good. So just make sure that you continue to listen and you continue to tune in. As you all know, the Girl Be Selfish podcast was born out of the Rhythm of Life Women's Wellness Conference. And our theme for this year was Self-ish. And we were just getting into the thought process of self-care. And so out of that, this bright and brilliant idea to have an anthology put together for the conference that turned into a book. And then it was a bright idea to turn it into a podcast. And so I'm super excited. So listen, there's no excuses for self-care the rest of this year. You got the conference, you got the book, and you got the podcast. So you should be good to go. But so I'm super excited to be back with you all today. I am Chanel McCord, CEO and founder of Oasis Wellness Group. If you don't know who I am also the host and founder of the Rhythm of Life Women's Wellness Conference. And so thank you all for tuning in and listening today as we have a juicy topic for you. So as I said, my good sis, y'all, Dr. Rochelle Robinson thought it not robbery to be here with me today. So Dr. Ro, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
You are so amazing, sis. I am just happy and blessed to be here. I am Dr. Ro. I am a New York State licensed psychologist. I am a certified school psychologist. So I've worked with teenagers and young adults. I'm also a college professor. I have a private practice and I'm an author. So I authored a teen mental health journal back in 2021. And I am currently helping first generation Black and Brown doctoral students finish their dissertations. Yes. So I'm a busy woman, but self-care is important to me because you cannot do all of these things and not look at yourself and take the time that you need to get what you got to get.
Come on. So Dr. Ro, you're a busy woman. Okay. You out here counseling, you writing books, you doing podcast interviews, you out here being a professor, you helping us doctoral students get our life together with this dissertation. So you are a busy woman. I mean, not just a busy woman, but everything you do is centered in mental health, right? And in this topic of self-care. And so I'm super excited. It's one thing. I love to have the mix of both professionals and those who have the lived experience. But it's even better when you're a professional that has the lived experience, right? Because people often forget that as a professional, that we too deal with life, right? Yes. So before we get into your topic, can we just talk about that a little bit? Like what it is to be the professional and you know all the tools and you know all the things, but you're still dealing with your life yourself.
Oh, child. That is something else. I mean, I definitely have a therapist because
come on,
he can be our worst patient, client, So I always have to have somebody to keep me accountable to say, are you thinking about you? Like, I know that you're giving out all of this, but what's happening with you? And I've had to take moments to be like, oh shoot, I didn't even think about like if I ate today or how much sleep did I get? Like I'm running off of fumes. So, just having that and then having the moment to say, okay, when am I going to rest? When am I going to do this?
That part. Yeah. I think that's so important. And I love that you said that you have a therapist, right? I tell people all the time, I'm a therapist with a therapist and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not just one of those therapists that's going around telling everybody to come to therapy and I'm not taking my own advice, right?
Right.
It's so important. Like we know the things. I remember going through a really, 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 really rough season in my life. And I remember sitting down thinking like, okay, Chanel, you're the therapist. You know all the things, do the things. Like literally telling myself, do the things, meditate, hope, do it. And it was like, I couldn't grasp it. And so going to therapy was a game changer and it was a life changer for me because it helped to remind me that I was human.
Absolutely.
That I was human. that I was human. And I think that's a great, like, kind of segue into just this idea of being selfish, right? Like, we're not talking about being selfish in terms of it's all about me and I don't care about nobody else, but this idea of being selfish of you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And we have to start with us, especially women. Right? This is a podcast for the ladies. Let's talk about this for a second. Ladies, we will try to be, and okay, hold on. All right, let me change my words. I was about to say we will try to be, but often we are put in position to be everything to everybody. And it's expected that you're able to just throw that thing on your shoulder and you got it. And we don't take care of ourselves and we're crashing and we're burning. And we wear that as a badge of honor. That's not no badge of honor.
Not with you looking all raggedy and toe up because it's too much.
Raggedy and toe up, okay? Like, just like that. And the problem is we don't have enough people in our life that'll tell us that you look raggedy and toe up.
Listen.
Okay?
That's coming. That's coming. I know it's going to come in the conversation. I know
you don't have enough people that's telling us, sis, get it together. You look raggedy and tore up. We got people all around us, and probably because they in their own mess. But listen, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Okay? You get me started, and we will be on a whole other rant. But listen, let me bring it back. Let's focus. Let's focus. Yeah. So the anthology, Girl Be Selfish. So Dr. Rowe is a part of our anthology. She has a chapter in the anthology called The Sacred Self. The Sacred Self. I want y'all to sit with that for a second, the sacred self. So Dr. Rowe, take us on a little bit of a journey on how you came to that topic and give us a little synopsis of your chapter.
So for this anthology, I wanted to do something that was personal. I didn't want to do a whole like this is my like brand, but I'm really into I'm really in the stage of life right now where it's like let's just pull all of the covers back and let's talk about these things that people don't talk about, but we know that it's there. So so I'm a co-director of the dance ministry that is at my church, and we are big. We have about 150 people there, and being a single person, my co-directors, there was a period where they were both married. And it just seemed like everybody was living their life. Like they, they were like, oh, I can't make it to this or, that because I'm, doing this or whatever. And I felt like I was always there. And I was like this sacrificial lamb that was holding it all together and always had to be at everything. And not just that, but just being active in like church anyway. Joining these different like ministries and things like that. And this chapter came from the church being this sacred place and us keeping the church like sacred, but not keeping ourselves sacred. Like we often deny ourselves that time alone and that peace to really pour in because we're doing the work of the house. Like so like we are being used by God, but it was almost like ritualistic. Like, I'm here, I'm doing all of the things here, but what is really going on inside of me?
Yeah.
And I've come across probably within the last 5 years single women who all kind of share that same feeling of I'm doing all of this work and now there's resentment building because I'm not taking care of me. I'm serve. So I really wanted to use this chapter as something that, we can get some balance. We can see how to manage it all because what we don't want is people to fall away from church completely.
Yes.
Because they're not taking care of themselves.
Yes. Yeah. That right there, I think I want to put a pin right there. I think that that's so important. This lack of taking care of yourself appropriately will cause people to fall away from the church, right? As a minister, one thing I see that the enemy using is
Mhm.
he uses burnout.
Absolutely.
He uses
Absolutely.
burnout against the church and the people of God. Like he
Mhm.
uses it, and now people are burnt out. And now, and let's be real, right? When
Mhm.
you're burnt out and you're tired, the first thing that's gonna go is church. Be
Absolutely.
real. I still gotta go to work. I'm gonna still do all the other things, but
Uh-huh.
church is like, oh, I'm burnt out. I can't go to church, right? And then what I found is the more you don't go, the easier it is to not go. And
Absolutely.
when you're a person where your faith and when you're a Christian, right, and you subscribe to the faith,
Mhm.
you need to be sitting under that word and just the accountability. And so this
Mhm.
idea of burnout and not taking care of yourself could really cause you, it will mess with your faith, right?
Yeah.
It's like a full circle thing. And
Mhm.
I guess for you, a question I have for you, right,
Mhm.
is when did the realization, like what was a turning point moment for you when you were just like, okay, something has to change? Like what was going on the inside of you where you decided, wait a minute, I'm not holding myself sacred and I'm
Mhm.
not taking care of myself and something has to change?
There were a couple of things. I think professionally, I wanted to be in a different space,
Mm,
and there were ways that I could grow. And I would literally talk myself out of moving. Like I would talk myself out of professional opportunities because I had to be at church.
mm,
So we were in a coaching group together, and that was
mm-hmm,
a huge step for me
mm-hmm,
because there were many times where I couldn't be in church because we would be traveling or,
mm-hmm,
workshopping. And it was very interesting to see like people like really got upset because I wasn't available. And I'm
mm,
like, wait, but this is like for me, like this is something that makes me happy. You
yeah, yeah,
um, this was something that I feel like I really feel, and I know that this is what God has called me to. And
mm-hmm,
just because it's not in church doesn't mean that it's not God.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that was one thing. And then personally, and I've had this conversation with numerous women,
mm-hmm,
is the idea of being in a relationship and being married.
mm,
Um, and I the idea of so yeah, one day I do want to be married, and guys would ask me out, and I would literally be like, no, like because I have church. like what? Like
right. I don't have time to date.
I was like,
Sorry.
no, like I don't like how am I like no, because my husband is just gonna come and we're just gonna get married. Like we're not gonna date. We're just how does that even work?
Mm-hmm,
So really being honest, like, okay, so this is something that I desire and I have to set aside time to do that.
mm-hmm,
So that was really a part of like self-care so that I could live a fulfilling life. Like not
mm-hmm.
just something like, okay, like I'm here and I'm dealing with it and
Yep.
this is what God gave me and I'm just good. No, but like God is like, well, I've given you options.
Come
Like what
on.
you doing? Like, are you setting aside time for yourself to grow in that way?
Come on.
So
I think that's so powerful. And as you're talking, all I hear is the B word.
mhm.
Boundaries. It's such a major part of self-care,
Mhm,
and even within the church. And one thing that I talk with my clients about a lot is, so the hard part is that we are quick to blame everything and everybody else for this is where I'm at, right? What
mhm.
I've learned is that I teach people how to treat me.
Absolutely.
And so if I don't set the correct boundaries, I have imposed this expectation that I will be everything to everybody all the time.
Mhm,
Call on me. I'm never going to miss nothing, even if I got to lose sleep. And even if I that like, I
mhm.
have created that paradigm. And so then
Yep,
what happens is you teach people that, oh, this is how you treat Dr. Rowe. Dr. Rowe
yep,
always gonna be there. She's never gonna go on vacation. She's never gonna do this, that, and the third, or whatever, because you didn't set boundaries. And then what happens, we get to a point where we're like, wait a minute, like I'm done.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
done, right? And then everybody around you, like, what's
What?
happening or whatever, right? And so
Mhm,
it's like it's this dual process of
mhm.
the systems, right? I don't want to just say the church, because it's not just an issue in the
Yep.
church, but the systems, because we could have a whole other conversation about work, jobs. That
Listen.
could be that
Yep.
could be a whole other conversation, right? But I'm just gonna say systems for now, whether it's work, whether it's church or whatever, the systems have to get better and prioritizing wellness organizationally,
Yeah.
right? There's this
Yeah.
idea of organizational wellness that has to prioritize. I get it. Bottom lines have to be met, certain things have to be done or whatever, but we have to learn how to utilize our people resources where we don't burn out our people resources. But
Mhm.
then the people resources also have to be honest and
Mhm.
try not to be everything to everybody, right? And so this idea of boundaries, I want to hear from you, your perspective on, did you find it hard to set boundaries? Are you still finding it hard to set boundaries? What was your process and journey to getting there, or to getting there currently if you haven't made it? Because that's just the reality.
I think the biggest key was when people started putting things on my calendar. They wouldn't even ask me. It was just like, this is where you're gonna be. And I was like, wait, what? Like, wait a
Now
minute,
that,
what do you mean?
now
So
that,
that was the thing that kind of like tipped me like, okay, wait a minute. Um, this is a lot. During my dissertation, that was when it was like, this is a heavy lift.
mm,
And I cannot be here 3 or 4 nights a week. Like, I literally have to write. Like I go to work, I come home and I write, and so I had to say when I was available to say, okay, this is when I'm free.
mm-hmm,
After this time, it's just not gonna happen. And there was a lot of pushback because people just did not like people were not used to me saying
mm-hmm,
no, like I'm not available, you
mm-hmm,
know. So that was the first thing. And then, when I did start to even see like my family was doing things, they were going out to dinner, they were taking little trips, and I was missing out on that. And it was just like, okay, you
mm-hmm.
know, being with your family and like socialization is just good for your soul.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you can't be just work, 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 work.
right,
Like
right,
ministry wise, sorority, like I see it there,
mm-hmm,
like as well. And you will really just box yourself into this one place.
yeah,
Like this is my entire life, and
yeah,
you miss the other pieces of your life
yeah,
that are going on.
yeah, yeah,
So now I do not have a problem with boundaries. I know
mm-hmm,
there are seasons where I'm all in
mm,
and I devote myself to that, and I'm happier because
yeah,
I had a choice to say, this is
yeah,
where I want to be.
yeah,
And if there are other things in my life that are going on that it's like, ooh, oh, okay, let me see if
mhm.
it works. Let me see if I can get it in. But I am at a point now where people at least have to ask me, like, are you available?
Yeah.
Because they weren't doing that before.
It's a difference. It's a difference between, we got this rehearsal this day and this time, and then just walk away because the expectation
Yeah.
you're going to be there, versus, hey, we're trying to do this. Like, it's now considering.
Yep.
It's consideration and not just
Yeah.
assuming. But when you said missing out, like, I think that is so powerful. And everyone who's listening, I want you to hear what Dr. Ro just said. Like, she recognized there was moments where she was missing out on family trips, family going out to dinner and stuff, and not available. And so what's happening is there's this distance and this pulling away of your support system, right? Of the things that make you happy, of the things that you should be tuned into, because it's all about the work, 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 work.
Mhm.
Even God rested. I need to remind people of that. Even God rested. It really is okay to rest and enjoy life, right?
Mhm.
It is not all work. And when you talked about the seasons, that's
Mhm.
exactly what the Rhythm of Life conference was born out of, and helping people to understand the rhythm of the season that you were in. Like that is
Mhm.
exactly it. There may be seasons when I'm all in, like I'm
Yep.
all in because I have the bandwidth and I have the capacity for that. But then there may be seasons where it's just like I can't, I find
Mhm.
myself because of school and I'm
Mhm.
teaching and I have in-person classes I have to attend or whatever. I had to let my pastor know in this season for this semester I won't be at Thursday night Bible studies.
Mhm.
I just don't have a way, I don't have a bandwidth. And I could, whatever to try to make it happen. And it's just like, okay, let's just be realistic of where you are. And here's the
Mhm.
thing. I was the one who was afraid to go have the conversation, like, oh my God, what are they gonna think? What are they gonna have to say? And I told my pastor, and she was like, okay.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. I mean, I think being a ministry leader and doing what I do, being a psychologist, I am able to discern and see that in my members.
mm-hmm.
And I see when it's like, you ain't supposed to be here. Like, you got stuff at home going on that you really need to be handling. Like, you do not
Come on,
need to be in this rehearsal.
come on.
And I've seen, unfortunately, how some leaders will take advantage of people who they know will always be there.
Mm,
And it's like, you know that that person needs a break. Like, why are
right,
you pulling on them?
right,
So, but
right.
people will feel like I can't let my leader know that I'm not going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
There will be somebody else to do it.
Yeah. And here's the thing.
Someone
This
else
is
to
what
do it.
our pastors have taught us. Sometimes other people don't rise to the occasion because you won't move out the way.
Help, listen. Okay. Okay.
There are people who are sitting in the wings that not only can do what you do, can walk circles around you in doing it, but you're in the way. The position or the spot looks occupied. So
Mhm.
sometimes you got to move out the way. And,
Yeah,
one of the things my pastors are big on having a team and delegating. If
absolutely.
we ask you to do something, we are
Mhm.
asking your team. So I'm not coming to you and saying, Minister Chanel, I need you to stay after and do all of this. Pull on your team and make
Yep.
it happen. And so
Mhm.
that's the other side of it, right? And that's what we're talking about, that in terms of ministry, but even
Mhm.
support system. When we
Yeah.
talk about this idea of self-care, right? Because I'm a minister, right? So I do have a heart for the ministry. And you
Mhm.
don't want the things of the ministry to drop. But if
Right.
I'm doing my part in cultivating my support system around me,
Mhm.
I don't have to worry about the things in the ministry dropping. Because if
Yeah.
I can't show up, I got 10 other people that I
Right.
know are very well capable, right? And that
Mhm.
is cultivating our support system. And so that's the case for ministry, but in general in our life. When we
Yeah,
talk about self-care, you got to cultivate a support system. So
absolutely.
many of us are out here trying to do things by ourselves, and we
Mhm.
just weren't created to be by
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. And people are out here, they're getting sick and they're
Come on,
still coming out thinking they gotta do it all. And it's like, sit down,
come
sit
on,
down, have a
come on.
seat.
Have
Somebody
well,
got it.
have 7 seats, okay? You don't have to do it all. Like that
Yeah.
that is it right there. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to. Self-care is knowing you don't have to do it all.
Right. Right.
You
And
know?
especially with your faith in God, like you have to trust that
Mhm.
God is gonna put the right folks there for, like, if you don't know, pray, like, Lord, send the people who are gonna help me.
Mhm.
Because you know where I need to be at this point, and
Mhm.
I can't do this on my own. Because again, when you end up going, those times when God is like, sit down, you go in and your mood is off, you got an
Come on.
attitude because you
Come
don't
on.
want to be there.
Come on.
And the morale of your ministry ends up going down because they're like, well, dang, she don't want to be here either.
Exactly.
Why am I showing up?
It doesn't even come off right. You,
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't, you're not even doing it in the right spirit,
yeah,
And I think I think that's an important point too, especially when we think about in terms of ministry, like rest, self-care, going away, all of that is so important so that your spirit remains right.
absolutely.
So that if I'm going to be dealing with people and I'm supposed to be helping people, but
Mhm.
I'm up there and I got an attitude and I don't like people today, Like I'm doing more damage than good,
Yeah.
like to thine own self be true. Because there's certain
Right.
days I'm just like, yeah, I just don't want to people today. Like
Yeah.
I don't like people today, and now
Yeah.
you got an attitude and ain't nobody do nothing to you.
They like, okay. I mean, what I've noticed and what I've learned is that when I've taken my time off, whenever I come back, the ministry is so happy to see me
Mm-hmm.
and I'm happy to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, like, how's everybody doing? How's it? And everybody is like, you're so pleasant when you come in. And I'm like, yeah, like that's because I took time away. And I see what happens when people don't. And it does so much damage
Come on.
when you come in. I mean, being a ministry leader is draining
Mm-hmm.
because people are pulling on you. Like, this is a spiritual thing that
Mm-hmm.
they're pulling on whatever Jesus, God, creator you have.
Right, right.
Because they're like, you are the leader, so you are the answer. Like, you are supposed to lead me to Christ, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And um it's like, whoa, y'all took a lot out of me tonight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that's why you need to have your time where you're like, okay, I'm not talking about ministry.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about something else.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to show up in another way. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah.
It's so important.
And so, if I was to summarize this idea of what you're saying, the thing that comes to mind for me is that self care is necessary for effective ministry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is necessary for effective. If you're going to be effective in ministry as a ministry leader, right? And not
Mm,
just as a ministry leader, maybe you're just a servant. Maybe
yeah,
I just want to serve or whatever the case
yeah.
is. Self-care is absolutely pivotal so you can be effective. So you're not
Mm,
snippy, right? You're coming
yeah,
with the right heart. You're able to love the people of God. Because here's the thing, you don't know what's going to walk through the door. If I walk in and I'm like, I don't feel like people in today, but
right.
somebody walk in and God is like, no, I need you to minister your all to them. I can't be like, not today, because it literally could be a matter of life and death.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't know when these people are going to come back or
Mm-mm.
if they're going to come back
If,
or if they don't come back because of your attitude.
oh, girl,
I mean,
girl.
because people like to get on the church, like, oh, everybody's being in the church and they don't like to. It's like, let's not give them a reason to like,
Exactly. And it's not everybody. It'll be that one person. That's the other thing. We gotta stop saying it's everybody. It ain't the whole church did
right.
not offend you. Okay.
Like, one person that had a bad morning.
Right. And I'm not trying to be insensitive to people's
No,
feelings or whatever the case is, but we gotta learn to place energy where energy needs to be placed. But
absolutely.
you're right. You're right. That person may have walked in like desperate, and you're the first thing they encounter, and you have an attitude, and it's like, all right, now you know what? I gave up on God because
Right.
I encountered Chanel, and she had a
Mhm.
whole attitude, and she's supposed to be a minister and all of that, So
Yeah,
self-care is necessary for effective ministry. I like it. And
absolutely.
so, Dr. Rowe, what
Hmm.
is one or two things that when these women read your chapter, The Sacred Self, what do you want them to get out of your chapter?
I want them to get that they have the choice and they have the option to take a break.
Mm,
Because a lot of times we feel like we don't have that
mhm,
option. We feel like we have to do. We,
mhm,
we've got to be everywhere. So I want them to know that. I want them to really be intentional about scheduling their seasons where they're going to have their downtime,
mm,
where they are not serving, they're not pouring out, but that they are intentional about having the time to fill up.
mhm,
And one thing that I like to do with that is I like to go to like conferences and other churches like solo, where nobody knows me.
mhm.
Nobody knows what I do. I am not a leader. Like, you just know me as Rochelle Robinson. You don't know that I'm doctor, that I'm the lead. No.
Mhm.
And really just have that moment to be me without the title.
I like it.
So
Mhm.
that is something that I really want people
I
to
like
know.
it.
And I also want people to be honest and true about the other areas of their lives.
Mm,
Um, to say, am I fulfilled in those other areas? Or are those things, are those areas that I've like neglected,
mm,
but that truly bring me joy and that make me a whole person?
right.
Because church is a part of you, but that's not all of you. Like you do have these other parts of you that, yeah, like wants to be loved, wants to have your sister girls, and
Mm-hmm,
let's do a girls trip or whatever, like family and things like that
mm-hmm.
professionally. Like, what are those things? Because I feel like those things get neglected a lot. And then we see people in church who are just I mean, well, we are all a mess, but we see people who it's just like they don't have a life
Right, right,
because church has become their whole life and they are not whole
right.
and they don't know what is missing. And it's like, well, pay attention to those other things, grow in those other areas.
Yeah.
So that's really what I want people to be like mindful of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mind, body, and spirit. Making sure
Absolutely.
take care of it all. It all
And
matters and it all counts. And what I found is when you find this, again, I don't necessarily subscribe to balance, but I subscribe to the idea of rhythm. When you find this rhythm, there's a fusion that takes place. Like there's
mhm,
this because when parts of you aren't good, all of you is not good.
right.
But when you're tending to all these areas of yourself, right, and you're doing what you have to do, like you're good. Like if you're tired, you're not eating right. And because you're not eating right, your health is not right. And you sluggish. And because you sluggish, you got an attitude. And because you got an attitude, your personal relationships are suffering. Because your personal relationship is suffering. Now you are learning to like it all wraps up into, and I
Right.
can keep going and going and going. But we forget that we are
Mhm.
one person made of many
Yeah,
parts. So taking care
absolutely.
of all of us. I love it.
Yeah.
Listen, Dr. Rowe, thank you so much. One, for being a contributing author, for being a selfish author, as I like to call my authors in the Girl Be Selfish anthology, and for being our podcast guest for today. Listen, you want to get the book. You want to get the book. This is
Absolutely.
only a synopsis. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to really get it and understand until you dig in and get the book. Make sure that you go to the website www.oasiswellnessgrp.org, grab your book, and listen, y'all, make sure that you are taking account of the sacred self.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are taking account of the sacred self because it is so important for your journey and making sure that mind, body, and spirit, you
Mhm.
are being selfish. And so, Dr. Rowe, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram as Pivotal Point Psych. That's PSYCH. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook as Rochelle Robinson Psy.D. That's PSYD. And you can find my website at www.pivotalpointpsych.com.
Yes. And real quick, tell them about your journal. Tell them about your journal.
So I have a teen mental health journal, and that is for preteens and teenagers who just need to express the way that they feel. So it is 5 sections of topics that teens talk about amongst themselves, but not with anyone else. So this is really a space for them to write. They can draw. There are prompts there so that they don't have to figure it out on their own. Um, and for people of color, it looks like them. So a lot of teenagers really love the fact that they have a journal that looks like them.
I love it.
And if anybody is working on a dissertation and you are struggling to get through that, and you are a first generation Black or Brown student, please visit my website, and it will link you to the program Pivot to Completion. The goal is for you all to get done and to not neglect yourself in the process.
Woo!
So a lot of people
Yeah,
talk about the technical part of writing and write for 5 and 6 hours and things like that, but life be lifing.
life be life.
And you have to know how to flow and be in that rhythm of what's going to happen. So we want you to get done because we need more Black and brown doctors across the board in every field.
I love it. And listen, I can't wait. Listen, I got about one more year before I'm in that dissertation phase, and I'm going to be calling you up, sis, because I refuse to let the dissertation take me out. I refuse.
Don't.
I'm going to live my best life while I'm doing the dissertation, sister.
Yes. I mean, if I can say just one last thing is during that process, I feel like my life was a blur. I cannot remember anything. And my self-care was not that great. So I want to make sure that folks are not in that same boat.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah. How we can take our pain and make purpose out of it. So thank you for that. Listen, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Dr. Ro's information will be in the show notes. Make sure that you tune in next week. We're going to have another amazing author who's going to be coming on and talking about their chapter. And if at any time you guys have any questions, listen, drop us a line. Let us know what your questions are. If you have specific topics that would be great for us to cover on a Girl Be Selfish podcast, let us know, because we want to make sure that we're talking about the things that matter to you. So until next time, I love y'all. I do. I really do love y'all. And I'll be talking to you soon. And remember, stay selfish. Bye, family.
Bye, everyone.